What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Hart. Today, I'll be breaking down this 8-game NBA slate here on DraftKings, doing a game-by-game breakdown, as well as going over my early look core plays. If you guys want a more in-depth breakdown, game by game, updated core plays, all that good stuff, you can find it in my Patreon link down below, where I do all the key injury news, game-by-game breakdowns, winning lineups from the previous day, game totals. As you can see, I highlight all the teams, all the game breakdowns, who I'm looking at, who I'm taking a shot on, game theory, all that good stuff is in this. So make sure to check that out. Link down below. You can find that and a prize picks package all in one. So make sure to hit that like button and let's get into this breakdown. So doing a quick recap of yesterday, make sure to follow me on Twitter at HeartDFS. It was a great day in prize picks. We went 8 and 10 overall on the tacos. Almost had a 6x there. Unfortunately, Horn Tucker got 3 stocks and the game went into overtime. But yeah, it was a fantastic that night there on prize picks. And on DK, this was 2 nights ago on the Sunday night slate. I was able to cash there. And then yesterday was able to cash as well. Went with Goodwin, Mays, Bogdan, Tatum, Horford, Nunn, Walker, and Jokic. And of course, everyone in my lineup does great besides Tatum and Jokic. 8% Jokic. This is what I've been saying. I've gotten Jokic at such low ownership this whole year every time I play him, and he's gone for 45 or less every single game. It doesn't make sense. The best matchup you could ask for, and they get blown out by Houston. There's no Jamal Murray, so Jokic has all the usage, and he throws up a 40 bomb, just does nothing. It's like really my two spin ups, Tatum and Jokic, just go for floor games. It's like if they go for their averages, I would have been in the top 20, I think. I would have been at 340, 342 or 343. Let me just scroll up real fast. So yeah, I would have been top 25, top 30 easily with them just hitting their averages. And then if they go for a floor game or excuse me, a ceiling game, could have stuck maybe into the top five at least. Not sure if I would have gotten close to first place, maybe. But yeah, it's just like, come on, man. Like really, 8% Jokic, he goes for 40 fantasy points. Like so dumb. But moving on to this 8-game slate, looking to continue the cash streak into 3 straight slates. So the first game we have here is the Knicks versus Indiana. For the Knicks side, obviously, Randall is still out, and then Barrett is questionable. If Barrett is the big news. So if he's in, I really like Brunson, really like Barrett. You can land on these other guys. They're fine. The price tags are fine on them. They still have decent upside. It's just I'd prefer just getting to Barrett and Brunson. They'd have all the usage, and these other guys are just more like secondary options. You could land on like a Hartenstein, seeing mid 20s minutes. He's been super productive. Um, Robinson had a little bit better of a game last game, 2 games in a row where he's almost gotten a double double. So I mean, they have upside. They're decent price tags, so they're there. But now, Barrett is out. Then Quickly and Brunson both look great once again. Quickly is coming off a solid game there, 44 fantasy points with the start without Barrett. So they both look great, the clear standouts. Grimes would be a solid mid-range play. I mean, he's been super productive and he's been playing a ton of minutes, so he looks decent. Josh Hart would look a little bit better there. He'd be a stronger secondary option. And then obviously it's not like a huge bump to these other guys besides Toppin, who would probably play mid 20s, maybe into the 30s, depending on how he's doing. He'd be a decent value option there at 5,100. And obviously the centers are still both in play. So that's kind of it for the Knicks side. It's really just dependent on Barrett. Now, if he's in, I do really like him at this price tag. It's a great matchup here versus Indiana. Moving on to the Indiana side, it's kind of the similar breakdown that we've had the past few games for Indiana. Turner, questionable. I'm assuming he'll be out. There's only 3 games left. Not sure why they'd play him. So we'll probably get Nemhard, Matherin, Nwora, Smith, and Heald starting. I don't think Heald played last game, did he? Cleveland was the last game he played. I guess he did. I'm not really sure why they're playing Buddy Heald. Maybe he's got a streak he needs to continue. But he only played 23 minutes. Game was pretty close too, so don't feel great about his minutes. So I'd avoid him as of right now, unless you want to take a super risky stance and think he gets normal minutes. You could definitely do that, but for right now, I'm gonna avoid him. But yeah, we should probably get Nemhard starting, Matherin starting, Nwora starting. I would assume Naismith starting in either Smith or Jackson. My favorite plays would probably be Smith or Jackson. Smith's seen about mid 20s. Jackson's a little bit riskier. The minutes aren't as great recently, but we know he's huge, huge upside. He's super foul prone, so if he can stay out of foul trouble, he should get more minutes. So at 4,400, I still like taking a dart throw on him. And in the wings, like a Naismith, Noora, they should all see like high to mid 20s, if not like low, low 30s. So they're all pretty solid as well. So good amount of interest. If I had to land on one or two of them, it'd probably be Noora and probably Jackson and McConnell. McConnell's super, super productive if he gets the minutes. Should see about 20-ish. If he got more, that'd be great. So yeah, good amount of interest in Indiana. It's not like a clear standout or guys who be like, oh, I'm plugging them in, but a good amount of interest in a few of them. On the Brooklyn side here, it's one of those slates where we're gonna have to start seeing if teams are gonna be resting people. I think they're still fighting to kind of secure their spot. So we get a great matchup here versus Detroit. Bridges priced up to 8,600. Now he's more in the range of kind of like he's an okay play. I don't love that price tag, even though he's had great upside. He's been great recently. I like the price tag a little bit more on a Dinwiddie. Claxton's price tag looks pretty solid here, seeing about 30-ish minutes or so. Cam Johnson priced up a little bit too high for me, kind of score independent. And then we could definitely, get to a Royce or DFS, but yeah, I mean, they're there. No real interest in them unless, like, for some reason they, like, ruled people out because this is a back-to-back for them. So if we got, like, people ruled out, then we can start looking to, like, the De'Aaron Sharp, um, the Cam Thomas, Edmund Sumner, David Duke Jr., Yuta. So let's wait and see if anyone gets ruled out on the Brooklyn side, but as of right now, not a lot of interest on the starters. Detroit side, Ivy coming off a big game against the Heat there. Price hasn't moved. Similar upside. I mean, he has all the usage. Kind of a similar spot here. So I don't mind him as like a contrarian play there in the 7K range. He looks decent. Bagley's questionable. Bogdan's questionable. Magruder's questionable. Burks is questionable. I don't think any of them will play. So we'll get the similar lineup as Ivy, Hayes, Wiseman. They did start Duran alongside Wiseman last game, and then they did start Livers. If that's the same, Livers looks like a decent value option there, 4,600. He did get hurt, but he did come back. Um, Eugene played off the bench, only played 26 minutes. I guess he's okay at 5,000. I'd rather get to Livers. Once again, I think Duran's my favorite. He got the surprise start alongside Wiseman and went for 20 and 14, 36 minutes. So if he gets to start again, is going to see 30 minutes. I think he's too cheap there at 5,100. And then you can definitely take a shot on Wiseman. Saw about 30 minutes. His minutes have been a little bit limited, so I prefer getting to Duran. Hayes is a cheap price tag, played a ton of minutes. It's just he's super up and down, but we know he's solid upside. So I don't mind taking a shot on some of these Detroit guys, even though it's not the best spot against the Nets. They all have solid upside, and they all come in at pretty cheap price tags. Moving on to Toronto and Boston. Toronto side, I mean, they're all kind of there. Siakam's priced about right. Same thing with Van Fleet. Scotty Barnes is a little bit too pricey for me there, 8,100. OG, Podol. I mean, everyone's got kind of priced about right, maybe a little bit too high. If I had to land on someone, it'd probably be Fred Van Fleet there, 8,500. But him, Siakam, and Podol all look really, really solid. Off the bench, Boucher did see 27 minutes. He got extended, a little bit of blowout, but also he was doing very, very well from the field. So they did limit Podol in the first half, and they were running Boucher out there. Gary Trent is questionable. If he's out, it's just a few more minutes for guys like Barton, Koloko, Achua. They'll throw kind of all those guys in there. So not a lot of interest for me on the Toronto side. On the Boston side, I wouldn't be surprised if they rest Tatum this game and they play Brown. Brown was out last night with that back injury, or they just keep Brown out one more game and run with Tatum. If that's the case, whoever the starter is, actually let's just say if Brown's back, then Tatum looks like a solid spin up. Brown, I'd like him a decent amount in mid range. He'd be a very contrarian option. I don't think. I mean, you could land like on a Smart or Brogdon GPPs or Horford, but it really depends on if Brown's back and if Robert Williams is back. Now, if Brown's out or Tatum's out, whatever one of the big two is out, I'd obviously really really like the one that's in, and then we could start taking shots on these guards like a Brogdon, like a White, even a Smart off the bench. If Robert Williams is out, obviously Grant Williams will play more, and then Al Horford was way too cheap there, 5,600. As I mentioned last game, he shot the ball poor, but he played 35 minutes, had to guard Horford, had to guard Embiid, went for 31 and a half. Could have had a massive night if he had some shots, but yeah, he'd be too cheap there, 5,600. So a decent amount to like here for Boston. Just got to wait for that news. For the Washington side here, Porzingis, Beal, Kuzma, all questionable. Same thing as right. I'd expect all of them to be out with only 3 games left. They're not playing for anything, so I'd expect them to start Gafford, Kispert, um, Johnny Davis, Goodwin, and once again Gill. And I think all of the starting five are in play here. Get a great matchup here versus Atlanta. So you could definitely land on Gafford and Kispert. I think they're just a little bit too, Gafford's a little bit too just questionable with the foul prone. Kispert's a little bit too questionable just with the kind of oh, he's very score independent, as you can see here. 29, only 34 fantasy points, 27, only 35. He really just shoots, and that's about it. So you can definitely land on Gafford and Kispert. Gafford, they both have a huge upside. It's just I don't feel great playing them. I'd rather get down to a guy like Johnny Davis. He played 36 minutes, went for 40 fantasy points. Goodwin didn't really hit a shot, but he still went for 34, played 28 minutes. Nunn was great for me in my lineup last night, played 22, but went for a 50 bomb. So, I mean, good amount of interest once again in these guards. So I do like a good amount of them. Like Goodwin, I like Davis. They're both very cheap price tags for how much minutes they're going to be playing. And then you could definitely land on a Nunn. I think a lot of people are going to chase. He did only play 22 minutes in a kind of close game slash blowout. So I say will be warned, be wary about that because if Goodwin plays better, it could limit Nunn. But also if Johnny Davis does worse, Nunn could get some more minutes. So I think all three look great. I prefer Goodwin and Davis, but Nunn is definitely a solid play. And then guys like Jackson played 23 minutes. He's a fine value, 2,300. Huff, 27 minutes. He was super productive. So I think he looks like a great play there at 3,200. Gill, I don't know if I'd land on Gill. 22 minutes just wasn't great. Don't like that. Cooks, he played 26 minutes. We could land on him. So there's a lot to like here for the Washington side. Obviously, like all the cheaper guys, and that's about it. Moving on to Atlanta. Obviously, a great matchup here. Trae Young plays. The interest for me is really only going to be Trae Young and DeJounte Murray. Then you could definitely take a shot on one of the wings. If Hunter is back, you could take a shot at him. If he's out, we could take a shot on like a Bay or a Bogdanovich. Now, if Young is out, we're going to want to load up on Murray and these other guys. Murray had a okay game last game versus the Bulls. They blew him out. He only shot 7 to 13, so he did shoot pretty decent, 53%. Was just kind of more of a playmaker because Bogdan was scoring the ball pretty easily. So once again, I'd like him. Maybe that keeps his ownership down a little bit, but he looks great here versus Washington. Capella looks solid. Bay would look decent. Collins would look decent. Bogdan, once again, he would start. Surprised he was super low owned last slate, went for a 40 bomb. So he'd look great once again there if there is no Young and if there is no Hunter. Now, if they're the full strength team, as mentioned, really just the two guys at the top for me. Sure, you could take a shot on one of the wings, but that's about it. Moving on to Chicago here, Chicago and Milwaukee. Tough matchup here for Chicago, but I like Zach, I like DeMar, and I like Vooch. I think my favorite would probably be Levine or Vucevic. The rest of the team, they're just kind of priced about right. Sure, you could take a shot on Kobe White, but as I mentioned, he does have a floor, and we saw that last game. 3 of 10, 22 minutes. So he's very risky there at that price tag. That's about it. You can land on one of these cheaper guys, but I don't think there's a need to. Moving on to Milwaukee, wouldn't be surprised if they rest one or two guys here, maybe a starter. So if they're full strength, I think it's just Giannis for me. I did mention Bobby last slate, and he went for a 53 bomb, almost a 20-20 game. So we know he's that huge upside there. So if one of the starters or both of the starters, like a Giannis or Drew or a Chris Middleton's out once again and a Giannis is out, definitely look at to Bobby Portis there, 6,600. He looked great. So yeah, it's just more of just like the wait and see approach because right now, if they're all in, it's really Giannis at the top for me, and Bobby's just a solid GPP play because of his upside. But if we get news that one or two of the stars are out, then we can start looking to some other options. So stay updated with me on Twitter and my Patreon. Moving on to Memphis and the Pelicans. Ja looks fine. Triple J looks fine. That's really it. Luke Kennard did play 34 minutes without Dylan Brooks last game. He's been playing super well. So if there's no Dylan Brooks and Luke Kennard like starts, I think he looked pretty solid. Pelican side, Ingram's priced about right. I think he's still a decent play. CJ's fine, contrarian. J-Val, he's been seeing the minutes. Minutes have been down a little bit just because of blowouts. So I still think he's a very solid play here versus Memphis. And that's about it. No real interest in any of the wings unless you think Larry Nance does good and J-Val does bad. Moving on to Sacramento and Dallas. Once again, it's just gonna be Fox and Sabonis for me. Fox is still seems a little bit too cheap here. He sometimes gets off to slow starts, but he does really well in the second half. So I like him a lot once again. The wings are all fine there. Monk is a decent tournament option there. Did come back, almost put up a 30 rack there, so he looks solid. Moving on to Dallas, it's a must-win game for them, so they really need Luka and Kyrie to play. I'm assuming both of them play, so if they do, it's really just Luka and Kyrie as the options for me. That's about it. Moving on to the Lakers and Clippers, another must-win for the Lakers, back to back. So it'll be interesting to see if LeBron does play. If he's out, obviously I'd love Anthony Davis, and then these other guys like Schroeder and Reeves will look pretty solid. If it's Anthony Davis and LeBron, really just prefer them two. Sure, you could take a shot on Schroeder. He played 42 minutes in that last game, and that's about it. And then the Clippers side, Kawhi. Actually, did he play 42 minutes? I don't even know. I think he did. I think the game went to overtime. Oh yeah, it did go over to overtime. So yeah, those three look great if there was no D'Lo. And on the Clipper side, I think Kawhi looks like a great spend up there, 10-2. We know the upside there with Russell, revenge game narrative here, so he should see decent minutes. Powell, Zubac, they're all decent tournament options. Morris and Gordon are most likely back, so that does eat into minutes of like a Man, Batum, even a Bone. So it'd really just be Kawhi, Russ, Powell, and Zubac for me if you're going to take a shot on the Clippers side. That's going to do it for the slate breakdown. Here are the core plays so far. Obviously, we have some injury news to wait for, so make sure to stay up to date with me on Twitter. Follow my Patreon down below. Join that for the premium Patreon package, or excuse me, premium PrizePicks package, as well as the NBA DFS package. So yeah, I'll have a PrizePicks video out after this, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.